Episode 114, Dave Dobson. Good morrow, and welcome back to the Realm. Today I have a very special guest, a friend of mine who is not just an author, but an all-around creator, someone I met on a show just like mine about a year ago. His name is Dave Dobson. Dave is a professor. Dave also creates computer games, some of which you're going to recognize. He also creates puzzle games, as well as his own authorship. So I'm very glad to have Dave on the Realm today. And Dave, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
My pleasure. Thanks. I'm finally able to get you on here. I wanted to open this up by talking about something other than your books. I noticed that in your bio that you developed computer games. Can you tell us a little bit about the history there and what you did?
Yeah, well, I've been doing sort of game design since I was a little kid, cutting things out of, paper and making my parents play whatever terrible board game I came up with. But once we got a computer when I was pretty young, and I started programming, and I loved computer games at that point. I was one of the 80s video arcade hounds. And I started releasing some of them as shareware back in the 90s. So I released like a game that was like Minesweeper. I released a game based on the old arcade game Bosconian called Centaurian. And then I released this game called Snood.
That's the one I've played.
Yeah, that's
growing up in the 90s, you played it, right?
Yeah, that's the one that hit pretty big. It ended up with over 30 million downloads. And of course, it was shareware, so 30 million downloads was not at all 30 million purchases. But
yeah, right.
Yeah. No, it did great. And that was just a tremendous ride. That was happening right about as I finished grad school. And for the next 10 or 15 years, it was one of the biggest shareware games there was at that point.
The dumb question then, I mean, do you think that your gaming brought you to your authorship? What brought you into writing? Because this sounds like you were going down a pretty successful career path.
Well, that was a whole bunch of luck and a whole bunch of timing, right? I didn't set out to, have it be this giant thing. The things that I think have translated over to writing are, it definitely gave me the confidence that what I did would have an audience. I didn't know how big or how extensive, but I think some people struggle with, well, I don't know if anybody will like this. And I knew that some people liked some of what I did. So that gave me the confidence to kind of finish the book. And it really made me quite comfortable with self-publishing. The model that I kind of liked of being hands-on in terms of the marketing and distribution and all that kind of thing, and having really close contact with people who like your stuff. I always wrote too as a kid. The story of me is kind of a story of half-assing a lot of things. So the writing was kind of a natural sort of thing. I like doing this. I'm going to spend some time doing it. Let's see if anybody likes it and wants to read it.
So you mentioned you were a professor. I'm assuming that, you get a chance to see a lot of crazy stuff at a university or a college somewhere. And then, ultimately, I think that writers have a tendency to be very good observers. Has anything that you've done found its way into your novels?
Definitely. One thing teaching does is it puts you in rooms with hundreds of people. And so when you're trying to come up with characters or traits or personalities, you have so much to build from. And so that really has made it into the books. I also, in The Outcast Crown, these two of the characters go on a bit of a journey, and a lot of their stops on that journey are actually stops from my Geology 122 field trip. So, that's a little self-indulgent, but
no. That's exactly what I was looking for, because I do the same thing. So I get that. And so tell us about the Inquisitors Guild and the series and what you've got coming up next. You said you're working on another book.
Yeah, actually two of them. The Inquisitors Guild is a sort of a medieval fantasy, not on Earth. It's an alternate sort of place, but it looks a lot like medieval Europe. Basically, there's this detective agency in this city, Frosthelm, and the books follow different members of that investigative agency as they solve crimes and uncover mysteries. And what I was really looking for was I really like crime novels and mystery, and I also love fantasy. And so I was looking for a way to kind of do both of those. And then I try to make them funny. They cover serious themes, and sure. I try to make the characters real, so it's not just a laugh riot, but they are, especially in dialogue. I try to make that sort of human and funny and have the relationships.
Yeah, well, I read Frosthelm and I got hooked, but that begs the other question I was going to ask you. It's hard for me to put a pin on what genre you write in. I see that there's a little bit of sci-fi. I see there's a lot of fantasy, and of course, like the thriller, suspense, crime novel stuff. What would you call the genre in which you write, or is it its own its own category?
The thing is, I like reading all of those types of books, and I also like trying new stuff. And so, I've done 4 of the fantasy novels. I did Daros, which is a sci-fi, sort of a space opera. I'm doing this one with the Marine on a planet with some alien ruins. I also, end of last year, beginning of this year, wrote just a thriller set in the modern world that has just very light sci-fi elements. And I had a lot of fun with that.
I'm wondering, have you had any feedback from your readership about, moving away from sort of this fantasy thriller thing and doing something specifically in modern day?
Not yet. I mean, I haven't released the thriller yet, which would be
I'm sorry. Okay.
The biggest departure from what I've been doing. Some people would say I should come up with a different, pseudonym for each like genre. And
I've heard that.
I just didn't want to do that. I would rather write as me and just see what happens.
But I do have to ask a question. As a self-published author, I fell in love with your book covers. I mean, they look sharp, man. They scream sort of fantasy adventure, right? They scream high fantasy, and it just attracts my eyes to them. So do you do that on your own?
That's so nice of you to say. I get them done. For the Inquisitors Guild novels, they all have a central piece of art, which is an item that's important in the story. I've gotten those, each of those 4 objects on those is from a different artist. And actually the first one, the amulet from Flames Over Frosthelm, my son read the book when he was about 14 and he liked it a lot. And he decided to learn how to do ray tracing. And so at 14, he just showed up and said, "Hey, I made your amulet." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And so I really wanted to use that for the book cover for that one.
Yeah, Dave, I'm glad because I'm really happy with the way that your covers look. And I like that backstory about your son too. I think that's great. And it's something that you can, share with him. But with that, we're going to move to our lightning round now. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, 1 2-word answers. And if you catch me on something, I might stop and ask you why, but I'll fire these at you and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So as a computer gaming guy, Pac-Man or virtual reality?
I would have to say Pac-Man, just because of my era. Although I play all kinds of stuff.
Oh, well, see, now that's my next question, right? Are you a retro gamer or are you ready for the new stuff?
Yes.
All of the above, right?
Yeah. I've got a Street Fighter 2 behind me in my basement here, but I played Dota and a Ghost of Tsushima. Man, that thing was awesome.
I'm the same way. I still play the old games, but as soon as I could throw on my Oculus, I'm there, right? So, next question: your first book or your most recent work?
Like, which do I like better?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that is impossible.
Come on, give me something.
So the first one was 14 Years Labor of Love. Like that. That one.
This is your first child, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but I fall in love with all of them as I do them, and it's really exciting to do a new one for me too. So
fair enough. I'll let you off the hook on that one.
Okay.
But this one I'm not going to let you off the hook on because I know what it's like to be a college football fan. I know you're originally from Iowa. So are you a Cyclone or are you a Hawkeye fan?
Oh, Cyclones forever. I grew up in Ames, which is where the Cyclones, live, and my parents both worked for the university. So yeah, there's like a 30-mile radius where it's Cyclones and everybody else is Hawkeyes. But
well, good. Well, look, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, how they can buy your books, and where they can find your games.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So my author site is davedobsonbooks.com. My game company is planktongames.com. Nod to my oceanography background. And then the games and books are also on Amazon and other places.
Well, thank you very much for being on the Realm. It was a pleasure having you, and good luck with your new book that's coming out.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Well, that's Dave. I told you guys you were in for a treat. That guy is all over the place. He's one of the smartest guys I know in this business. And for those of you that have reservations about self-publication, learn a lesson from Dave. He's somebody that has been able to do this successfully, not just in writing novels, but also creating his own games, both video and tabletop. And with that, I'd like to announce that the audiobook for Vorodin's Lair will be available here at the end of the month. So those of you that prefer that format outside of ebook and paperback, you'll be able to find that. And thank you very much for joining me in the realm today. I'm J.V. Hilliard, and may your gods go with you.